If we don't remember all of the policies, I've got them all printed off and organized here, so I can give us.
Like a rundown?
Yeah. First couple should be pretty simple. I'll come to it. We can kind of talk through them, but I can just give a quick update to what they are. So you have. And then we'll go from there. What's that? There was a couple. There was some additional ones that went in, but I added those. What did you? No, from that packet, they're all up to date in that packet. There was a few different from what went out on. I changed on Saturday. There was some recent ones on this morning that we added.
Yeah.
But that packet's up to date. Kind of at the mercy of when the bills come in.
Especially the automatic withdrawal ones, where they say they're gonna take it out, and so you have to hit it. There's not a lot of wiggle room on that. I'm trying to work on getting the date that they cut off earlier, so that I can cut off earlier. We're not there yet.
Hi, Matt.
Oh. Christmas tree.
Yeah, we're a little tighter quarters.
Got it.
You have anybody in the concert room?
All right.
Who does? He's in it.
Nope.
We're required. We're tomorrow. Jared's got one in it.
What's up?
Yeah, one in the band, and I knew Dawson. Are you fired up, Mr. Crump?
Yeah, he still had the gun, the silencer, clothes, the mask that he wore, he still had everything with him.
Still a very good assessor.
He's eating in the McDonald's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, but
No, he's available phone call for
For phone.
questions.
That's what I was like. It should be.
He knows 5:30, right?
I'm pretty sure so.
I'll shoot you a text.
He's like, I was there this morning and I'm done for the day.
I shouldn't make just call.
So I was expecting him to talk about facility stuff.
Oh, yeah. He's probably.
Not me. It's okay, that we know.
No, just, well, it's like, I know it's 5:30, it's here.
As I said, I'm gonna walk up and probably want to know what say.
It's like a kid walking late to class, everybody's staring at him.
Not yet.
Not yet. I'm with Amber, ready to go.
Well, I got 5:30, I'll call the meeting to order. And I'll start with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first order of business is approval of the minutes for meeting held November 11th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next agenda item is persons wishing to address the school board who are not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none. Approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, there are not.
Okay. So then we just need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll motion to approve it.
Jason, you want a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next agenda item is conflict of interest disclosures. Are there any new conflict of interest disclosures this month?
Not having it.
Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. If anybody has any questions on the consent agenda, otherwise I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I don't have a question that has anything to do with approval, but I just had a curiosity under the surplus tech. I just wondered what end of life meant versus the other annotations.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. A lot of times when our technology gets really old and we can't install new software on it, or the firmware gets bad, or like the Windows isn't supported like that, that's what we classify as end of life. We just can't use the district anymore.
That's what I figured. I just, it was a new item, so I had the question. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, old business. First item in old business, strategic plan.
So I don't really have any updates except for, I asked Tom for some updates on survey numbers today. I didn't get them today, but last Monday, which was only 5 days, we had 140 from parents, 40 from the community, and 1 from alumni. I think I know who it is. And then we just sent out the link this weekend then for staff to start filling out the staff one. And then middle school, I think, did theirs today. And high school is on the docket for tomorrow. So,
When are we closing?
the 16th of December.
And you're gonna encourage people tonight and tomorrow?
Yep. It'll be on those programs as well, the QR codes. And then I might solicit Mr. Uphoff to jump in and say a little words here at these concerts. Linda did a fantastic job doing that at elementary ones, by the way. Good job.
Get him some pom-poms, I'll bet it'd be more effective.
Okay.
The energy.
All right,
So we will send out one more reminder too, probably midweek, sometime this week, to say, hey, just remember the deadline's the 16th. Fill these out, here's the QR codes, here's the links, send those.
And it was in the paper this weekend. And then the chamber will send out maybe not this week. And spread the word out as far as reminders go.
I'll share it to local Facebook pages, and then if you just like board members, anybody, if you know alumni, send it out to them, ask them to please fill it out, share it on your Facebook, whatever we can do to just try to. And I sent it to community people that I know aren't part of the other groups, and just said we really want community feedback. So, like I said to you,
Yeah,
And-
I just sent me a thumbs up.
The alumni were keeping open until the 31st of December.
Yeah, but yeah, just kind of sending it out just so that they know. Because I think some community people feel like, oh, it doesn't apply to me, but if we can really reiterate, we want feedback from everybody. That'll help get participation.
Could you restate the numbers of that again?
That time was Monday, so what was it, like Wednesday or Thursday, Thanksgiving week, we sent them out. So that Monday was 140 for parents, 40 community, 1 home at the time.
Okay.
And also, there was one error on the alumni. It didn't have the 2024 year, and that's been fixed.
Yep.
So if you had alumni trying to complete it, and you're like, oh, my year's not on here, have them go back and do it again.
Yeah, I think it was just 2024.
Yeah, just that last graduating class.
okay, if there's nothing else on that, I guess we'll move on to the Chemco roofing bid.
Yeah, so you guys have, like, in the packet, if you have, there's page 22. If not, we've sent a couple of different emails, but page 22 is the letter, the recommendations from Tremco on kind of what direction to go. I'll let Jason and Karen kind of get going underway here too. Did you have a little presentation you got prepared there? I have to flip the PowerPoint. There you go.
Yeah, I just apply standard templates to my thing, so I'm excited about this design from me. Okay, so, Dr. Board, Karen and I, along with, Mr. Silvernail and Dave from Johnson Controls, met this morning to kind of go over this, HVAC piece this morning. So I'm gonna start by giving a little background on how we got to this morning's meeting, and then we'll kind of talk big project. And then we can answer any questions. So this is a copy of the bid sheet that you all have. These three numbers that I starred here are the numbers that we're going to be talking about eventually. But what led to this morning's meeting is kind of, we had a facilities meeting last Thursday, I think it was. And there were a number of things we had, questions about some of these big differences in the numbers here on certain items, and it led to a kind of a broader discussion about the life cycle of the HVAC unit from middle school, high school, or the HVAC system, I should say. And the discussion about, hey, if we have to pay to move these giant pieces of equipment anyways, and some of them are not or near the end of the life cycle, does it make sense for us to look at possibly replacing them? Because there's going to be a certain amount of sunk cost in this handle these giant things. And then that led to two questions. The Dr. DeBoer ran down, can we do this? We have enough lead time to do this. And if we can we afford it? So we've run down most of those issues, and I think Dr. DeBoer and Kim will talk about the money piece once I'm done with this. But I'm going to talk about the HVAC piece and what that adds to the total numbers, and then we can come back and talk about Tremco's recommendation versus essentially there's three options for us to choose from. So this is just a broad overview of essentially what we did this morning. So we got on the roof and we looked at the HVAC system primarily for the middle school. But we're going to talk about these units 1 through 4, and I'm just showing them here so you guys kind of have a broad picture of all the things that we're talking about. Number 1 is a condenser unit that primarily feeds the middle school admin area. That's a unit that's exceeded its life expectancy. Unit 2 is a brand new chiller. I just have it on there to show you that it's part of the ecosystem. It's not really involved in the proposal that we're going to be talking about in a second. And then units 2 and 3 are a couple of chillers that service the middle school gym area. And then number 4 services the high school. We're going to add a plus question mark, but it's kind of part of the problem that we're talking about this morning. Is that it seems like anytime there's an issue, a lot of it runs back to number 4, and its integration into the system as a whole. So number 3 was replaced about 12 years ago, so it's just shy of halfway through its life cycle, or just ahead of its life cycle. And then we don't have an exact date on showing the 4, but it's at least at its life cycle expectancy, probably over. We can talk about some of these other numbers here. This slide replays at the end, so we can answer questions about it. And then I just wanted to show you there are a bunch of heat exchanger units on the high school side that we replaced during the last renovation. And the reason I'm showing those is that if we do decide to go with the proposal from Johnson Controls, it basically mean the HVAC system up there is all new, or will be at the end of that, if that makes sense. These are the 4 units that we're talking about. This one is essentially brand new, this one is 12 years old, and these two are both quite old. So, in a nutshell, this is Johnson Controls' suggestion and their estimated cost. They want to replace these 2 chillers, so that's 3 and 4, with one larger unit, 130-ton chiller, and then integrate the hoses and the pipes and all the other things that we got on here. And then just with the added capacity, get rid of the condenser #1 completely. Let's take that out. I forgot to say at the beginning that this is only a few hours old, so if I miss something or misspeak, please just let me know I got it wrong. So that is, in a nutshell, what Johnson Controls suggesting we do. These are kind of the bottom lines here. For this phase, it would increase the project from 1.6 to 1.9 range to 2.4 to 2.7. It's a 43% increase for this phase. Total project, if you guys remember back to the original Tremco presentation we're looking at, it's about an 11% increase for the total budget range. And here it's hard to explain all this if you're not been walking through the whole thing, but there are some sunk costs to all this that it would be money we're going to spend whether we want to spend it or not. So there's roughly about $100,000 of sunk costs kind of recaptured if we decide to replace it versus move it. You got to pay to move it and then put it back, or you got to pay to move it and then replace it. And then I did just make a note of depreciation based on the value of number 3. It's halfway through its life cycle, which means we are kind of eating $60,000 worth of value in that. That's for everybody's information. Questions on these numbers? We'll kind of get into, I think, good numbers in a second.
I don't have a question on the numbers, but I do have a question. Did they tell you, like, what is the expected length of the new units? Are they all 25 new units?
Roughly. Yes. Yeah.
The other question I would ask is do we currently pay maintenance fees annually on these? Okay, does that change? What does that look like?
We have a service contract.
Okay, does that change?
He said it would, but we contract that every 5 years, and we're in year 2 of that.
Okay.
But it would change as far as like we pay for certain things that like that normal wear and tear that they would replace. But if they have to rebuild a motor, then we still have to pay for that. Where it changes in cost more than anything is if everything's brand new, we shouldn't be paying to be rebuilding different pump motors and different pieces and different parts. And then there are some added costs to some of the service, but any of those special service calls we wouldn't have. But as far as the overall price of that, the contract is the contract, and they're still going to be here changing filters, they're still going to be your doing all the regular maintenance and grease. And whatever. So
Theoretically, that contract stays in place as is and would not be reevaluated.
that was my understanding from what he told us
That's my
today.
understanding. It's about
Because I don't see them doing really any less work. They're still going to be maintaining the things we have, but we will save in cost, obviously, inefficiencies of only having 1 unit versus 3 units. In the long term.
That's probably the biggest potential benefit of going this route is just a reduction in the service take time, and the fact that 2 of the units are essentially at end of life cycle. So that's where we get back to kind of these other notations on there. So the condenser that serves the units had that basically could go out whenever at this point, and that's about a $90,000 cost. If we just leave it as it is, we replace it at some point in the near future. And then if we weren't comfortable with the total package as it were, another kind of down the road option or at the end of this project, initial phase that we talked about was, you could in theory just replace them for about $500,000 at the same point. And then we asked the question this morning about, is there any value that we can reclaim on number 3 since it's on halfway through its life cycle? And the short answer is not really. We can get less income than that if we can conquer it first. So maybe there's some that really probably not.
I mean, I would assume the newer units are probably more energy efficient, so we potentially probably have reduced costs and utilities. So
I think the short answer is yes. I don't know
what it would be.
what it is.
We're going to get to kind of why we're part of the presentation, getting to why we're at where
Yeah, okay.
I just
Why
double did that.
Okay, so
Not to hurry you along, I didn't want to say my piece if you were going to get to it.
no, well, and you can speak to whatever on this too for sure. So the reason we got into this discussion is that this bid number here only matters. So the lowest potential bid number at 1.5 or 1.6 million only matters if we get rid of the HVAC units and replace them with this system. So as we're considering potential lowest bidders, we need to keep that in mind. So if we decide to go forward with replacing or getting rid of unit 1 and replacing unit 3 with a new unit, then this bid number comes into play. So this bid number is base plus alternate 1, which just means the 20-year warranty on the roof. Okay. And then the other 2 things to consider tonight, so bid plus alternate 2 is the 30-year warranty plus replacing, or not replacing, but covering the stuff over the And then this number is 1. Or excuse me, I think I said that wrong. No, I didn't. So those are the things that we have to talk about. Basically, there's a difference of roughly $200,000 between the highest cost of the roof versus the lowest cost. So that's really the discussion topic for us tonight.
We do have kind of a timeline to decide on the HVAC if it's going to occur around the same time as the roof because of how long it takes them to manufacture units. So right now, we're like kind of right, he said, like, if we put in the order, whatever, here shortly, they'd be ready around June.
It's
Right?
12 to
May.
16 weeks instead of just lead time, so
So,
right now it would be like May if we order it in December.
Yeah.
Again, one of the reasons we got to where we're at too, maybe that sparked it from the beginning is when we were at the bid opening, we noticed there were some differences in numbers. We're curious about that. I did talk to Johnson Controls, and in a roundabout way, what we ended up kind of determining was some of the people bid to move 1 unit, and some of the people bid to move 4 units. Well, we knew roughly the price to move the bigger one was $70,000. Well, what does it cost to move the other ones? And do they really need to be moved? So we asked them to do alternate bid number 1, which is a deduct for what they put in for just moving the units. And that's where you see, like, for whatever reason, Blackhawk Roof Company priced it at $154,700 to move the units, and the roofing company put it at $235,000 to move the units. So did they do 3, 4, 2? I don't know, but that's the deduct if, in turn, we basically have Johnson Controls come and do that, and not these guys.
That's the deduction for the roofing bid if Johnson Controls moves the units.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Because we were a little, we just weren't really sure, well, that has to change your bid if you're gonna move 1 versus moving 4. So what does that look like if we do go ahead and purchase new units? Well, we're gonna have Johnson Controls do that. We don't need to put that in this bid.
But that's included in the cost.
So that's where we had them do that alternate. That's what alternate bid number 1 is. All across the board.
Mechanical deduct is the column that you're talking about. All bid one
Yeah.
is 20 year versus 30.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and then just to piggyback off that a little bit, also had an additional conversation about why there was such a discrepancy under all bid 2 metal panels. And basically, Dr. McGraw went back to Trinidad and had do exit interviews with the 2 potential bid winners to ensure that they did in fact know what they were talking about. That $35,000 for Blackhawk still makes me a little nervous. If we're going to see any change orders on this project, my guess is that's really fine. So that's just my gut. They've been hammered a couple times to make sure they fully understand the scope of that project and we see what we do. So the reason that was kind of the yellow flag to us is that the other bids all fell within the projected scope of what Trinco gave us as the first presentation, and there was quite a bit less for whatever reason. So we had to run this plan too.
So I would say ultimately what we need to know tonight, or what we need to try to figure out tonight is, are we gonna move forward with fixing the roof? And if so, which bid are we going to take to do that? I don't know that we have to make a decision on whether we're getting all new HVAC stuff tonight. But just remember, if we do, it's 12 to 16 week layout, wait time. So if we wait until February, you're gonna be pushing it to the August time. And we could certainly, I don't expect you just to take what we told you tonight and then just make our decision, but I think we need to, that'd probably be decision number 2.
And did you guys run some numbers?
We did. So just rough estimate when it comes to like our reserves and our budget. So currently with that $750,000 that we budgeted for the, and double check my math here, Kim, but so we budgeted $750,000 for the roof, right? That would put us just for the course of kind of where you're at map-wise, as opposed to normal years. That's deficit spending about $460,000, but it still gives us 3.6 million, 3.7 million in reserves. So from there, if you do the math, like if we did if we had amended our budget and we did another additional, let's just say it's an additional probably 1.2 million, right? So if you take half of that, say it's 600 grand, you're still looking at reserves of 3 million. In 25-26, we'll still have reserves of 2.7 million if we pay the other half. And by 26-27, we're going up again. We'd be at 3.2 million. So the reserve dollars are there to be able to do the projects, and fortunately is there. We also, just for the sake of discussion, this is the last year of a $250,000 payment for some other certificates that we have out there. So after this year, that's an additional shot of $250,000 a year. 2 years from now, we have another $111,000 coming off. So in 2 years, you're looking at $360,000 a year after that we don't have in payment. So you can see how you'll start kind of rebuilding your reserves right away. My recommendation would be to do it that way versus any type of certificates. Now you're not paying interest, you've got it in reserves, if you move forward. Kim, I think, concurs. We've kind of just put these together and worked on this today. We can give you a spreadsheet and give you some more numbers if we want to talk about it in January, but it's kind of a rough outlook.
So just to recap the three options, and something I wanted to talk about, this is just me talking for the moment because I haven't had a chance to run it by the rest of the committee, but as I was going back through my notes, one thing I wanted to point out when we're talking about the difference between the 20 and the 30-year option. So the two variations of the PPM right now on the roof, which is the and this is what we're talking about for the bid. So this would be the minimum increase in territory. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I just want to point out that in a way, we're sort of just paying for that increase over the years. That's something that we should just consider, I guess, as we go forward. And unless I'm wrong, John, right, we haven't had any, other than a seam tear, which won't be an issue with the new product, we haven't had any failures in the roof that aren't related to the flashing. So we have a fair statement, more or less.
See, most of my issues deal with the flushing.
There was one tear along the seam, kind of, actually, I think it was right above where we're sitting right now, more or less. That's been repaired. But the seam issue would be a consideration to be broken. It would be versus.
And just to add on the financial side, those are, I guess, what would be conservative numbers, because that's if you're dealing, you definitely spend $460 if you spend 100% of your capital outlay. And as you know, we very rarely do we spend 100% of what we budget. So those are conservative, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Is what I would say. My guess is if the reserve dollars will be a little more than that as we move forward.
So big picture, you're saying basically, like, if we just repair the roof and we don't replace these end-of-life units, we go through the process of repairing the entire roof, put those old units back, then they fall on us.
And then you gotta be on the roof
We're gonna have to do it
again, tearing the roof.
So
Yep.
big picture, it's just, in my opinion, replace everything. Then I personally like the idea of a 30-year warranty, and if we have a unit that's got 25 and we're replacing probably their 20 volts, we can replace around the same home again, which potentially
So, for the board's consideration, just these three items. So this would be no metal panels and the 20-year warranty. This number is all the bells and whistles, and then this one is the 20-year warranty with the metal panels. Those are kind of the three options on the table. If the board concurs, that would probably move in the direction of also replacing. If we're not going to replace the HVAC, then there's only one bidder position that's applied. If we are replacing the HVAC, then we go with the 20-year option without metal panels, then it's the roofing construction. The only reason I'm making the distinction is because we're required to take the bids. The roofing construction company is the lowest bidder if we take the lowest cost roofing option. That's why I'm pointing that out.
Is that what we want to do? I mean,
That's what I'm saying.
right,
That only comes into play if that is the route that we choose to go. So if we choose to replace only HVAC, and the reason that comes into play is because their deduction for not having to move the units themselves is significantly higher than the other company. So the numbers swing because of that. So,
but if we want to do the 30-year plus the metal, then we're,
And Blackhawk's the lowest bidder,
correct.
so, and that's the recommended.
right. So,
And we kind of looked at the two different companies and it was a little bit 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Blackhawk is further away, so you have that. Are they gonna, be at your meeting and caring about you and all that, whereas the other one is in Sioux Falls, the one in Sioux Falls, that's the kind of mom and pop.
They just don't, yeah,
They're
it's not as
smaller
quite as
outfit,
experience.
doesn't have, a lot of internet footprint, that kind of thing, so then you wonder, okay, well, if they're a small company, are they, gonna really care and wanna make sure that you have a good experience? So we kind of weighed all the different things, and it really just kind of boils down to which options we want. And then they can have to look at.
The benefit of doing the metal that you're talking about is what? Because it's on that stuff over there, right?
Yes, so,
It goes up higher.
Trimco's position is durability. It's a durability. I think it's thinking is that the how much they can get out of it. The thing we run into is their bid is so low compared to the others that it's almost ridiculous. As long as we're willing to fight the need.
well, and ultimately, I mean, that's where you have to trust your Tremco to make sure that they have everything in the bid that's supposed to be in the bid, because that's the only way they can have a change order, is if something wasn't in the bid, that they have to then do, so.
I would just throw this in too. Per state law, we have 30 days to respond to this bid. And it was the bid opening was the 21st. So we'll need a response one way or another. Either accept or reject, and we're gonna wait a year, or whatever we decide. That's not one thing to do, but just,
You don't necessarily need to make a decision today, but if you don't come to a conclusion, we'll probably have the initial meeting prior to 21st, you said?
Well, it's kind of like Andy said, I don't see why we wouldn't go with the 30-year roofing, because, if your units are 25-year units, generally you can get a few more years out of them, so hopefully then you're kind of doing everything at once. And I guess, it's one of those things as to where the companies are located. The people are going to be here that are working on it, so, I guess to me, that doesn't make any difference when you're dealing with schools. There's a lot of mobility in companies. There's, a finite amount of schools, so they go all over the place and work on schools. So I guess I'm comfortable with that. So I guess ultimately what we're looking for from the facilities committee is a recommendation on, what's your guys' recommendation on should we do a 30-year? If not, why not? Should we do the metal flashing? If not, why not? And then we move on from there. Then we start talking about the HVAC, because that's ultimately a side subject. I agree, it probably does make sense to do it, and maybe that's something that you guys need to work on this month. Maybe we have a special board meeting if a timeline is going to be an issue, or it's something that we bring up to vote on at next month's meeting. So,
Okay, I guess request an extension for number
Oh, I'm sure.
2. I'm sure we can do this after the next meeting.
sure. From Johnson.
Well, no, from the Black Hawk, well, from whichever one you say. Go with. If you want to push it out until
Right, but we could approve it, we had, and then basically the only thing we're talking about is the mechanical heat up then, right?
yes.
Whether we do HVAC or not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess, what's your recommendation on the 20-year, 30-year metal flashing not?
You talking about me personally or the committee?
Well-
Honestly, I think we're all over the place.
Right.
Based on all the specs on the thing, I personally don't know that the value is in, that there is a value for our one stuff. There's not technically anything different between the two roofs, except for the underlayment, which is supposed to protect against impacts. The structure of the roof itself is going to be the same product no matter what. The ceilings, the flashing, all those things, they're all the same. The additional cost comes from, you've seen a purple sheet rock that we put in bathrooms. It's a product similar to that we put under the vinyl layer, the key layer. And that's where the additional cost comes from. And that basically adds an extra sandwich layer to what needs to put, kind of plywood that we love, right there. You have the metal roof that's part of the structure itself, and 2 layers of insulated foam, and you have this board, and you have this, you know, all glued together with a big sandwich. So the difference between the 20 and the 30 is that chips in the wood. And it's resistance to impact. The functional durability numbers, you know, change. It's the impact coverage, and then 10 additional units.
Right.
So that's one concern. And the metal flashing thing, I think if we go with the 30 years, then I think that the metal flashing is kind of the important that cost. But it just happens. Because if the numbers, the numbers from Tremco suggested 80% off. There's no, just so you know, there's no structural issues with the stucco, like the soft spots or whatever. You might need to go back and reroute it and take them 10, 15 years. So that would be an issue. But there's not a structural reason.
Okay. Aaron, what's your take on it?
No, just me personally, I always feel like longer warranty is better because if something were to go wrong, if somebody is, other than us, is holding the bag for it. But I'm not as technical as Jason is as far as like the layers and that. I am of the same mindset, like it was not explained to me where the value in the metal panels came from. But, so that to me, I could go either way. If it's gonna add, structure and help with the durability, sure, but it wasn't, I didn't gather that. It wasn't really explained in that manner. It was just kind of an added thing. But like, I don't want to pay for something that we don't need. Like, if we don't need the 30-year warranty, I would rather save that money, especially when we're looking at adding on an HVAC project, which, it may not be that much, a couple $100,000 for 20 year versus, or for 30 year versus 20 year, but it all adds up, especially when we're looking at tightening our belt here in the next few years.
So, what I'm hearing on what I've read, what you presented, which is good, what I'm I'm hearing is, we just did this today. You guys put numbers together today.
Just the HVAC portion,
Right.
not the roof side.
Right, I get that. But all of that together, I think, I don't remember who said it. I think there's value in doing projects together, especially, like you said, 25 and World War II, right? So there might be some value in doing that, and then think from put on the 30. But like, it just feels like knee jerk right now. And like, if we have to have it, when will we have to have a special meeting by?
Well, the HVAC piece, we can wait till
Right.
January meeting to talk through
What
that.
about the terminal stuff?
Yeah, but I think that I don't think we're necessarily knee jerking when it comes to the roof. The only way, I mean, if we're not gonna do the roof, then our decision, we're not doing the roof. Because we're either gonna do it, or we're not. That would delay the whole piece, a year if you had to do some other financial mechanism. But I don't think it's a knee jerk on figuring out which one. If we're going to do the roof, I think we've put plenty of time into months of talking about this roof.
I think the big question is about the HVAC is this, the roofing company isn't even in contention if we're not going to do the HVAC because they're $200,000 higher than the Blackhawk company. So that's where that question comes in play is, yeah, they had $200,000 on moving the units. So, I mean, yeah, I guess in my mind, it's just a matter of deciding whether we want a 20 or 30-year roof, warranty roof on it. And I get it, I mean, the warranty, it's a similar product, but I mean, it's just like a warranty on a vehicle, I mean, hopefully you don't have to use it.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
We, as a committee, we haven't come to a quick decision as of our last meeting. The roof numbers are in, just to be clear, I don't think any of us have suggested not doing it. And I guess going down the road, my instinct is to take care of it.
I agree with you on that, but I do think there's where we could take a little time and we could put some numbers together and get that stuff to you guys. And I think by January, we could make a little bit more educated decision on that HVAC piece.
But if we're doing that, then we have to go with the roofing construction company because they're right.
Well, if we come to a decision on it for the year, that,
Right, so my
That's six,
understanding
that's
is
it.
no, if we use the 30, if we
Yeah,
pick the 30.
if we decide as a group tonight that we want the 30 years, that whole far right column is out of contention.
Well, you don't necessarily have to anyway, because basically you can take the base bid and go with the Blackhawk roofing company. So I guess the only way we can go with the roofing company is if we say we are for sure going to do the HVAC, and we for sure don't want the 30-year warranty roof. If those two things are true, then we can go with the one roofing company, but if either one of them aren't true, we have to go with the other.
Yes.
I guess that's,
Well, this part is where it gets confusing. So if you don't want metal panels,
right.
if you want to switch out the HVAC, you only want 20 years. But it's my understanding that we require by law.
Yes, you can come up with a valid reason.
Right. Yep.
So that's why that number is there. Not necessarily because that's the recommendation, just if that's when the tumbling line up, then that's what we're obligated to.
Right.
So, I mean, I seem to be the only one that doesn't necessarily care about the numbers, because everybody else is on the same page, but that would drive the rest of the discussion.
I guess, I mean, I'm ready to make a motion to approve the 30-year warranty. Number 2, the preferred recommendation on page 22.
Yep.
Number 2, which is 20 years.
Number 1, you said, right?
Number 1.
Number 1.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
But I would make a motion to approve that option.
What about the house? Is that a hundred pounds?
That
Yeah.
might include, that includes, you know,
So, like, everything. All the options.
Okay. That's fine. Do we have a second? We can also have more discussion. So, well, it doesn't matter. We can have a motion and have discussion. That's perfectly fine.
It's $200,000 extra right off the top. Given the capital outlay that you mentioned with those other large things coming off of our expenses in the next 2 years. Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would just say this, you either have to have a second before there's discussion, or the motion dies
Okay. Then I'll
before
second.
discussion. Okay,
So
now,
now we can have discussion.
great.
I'm gonna rehash that question.
Yep.
Given the fact that it's $200,000 extra, but we have approximately $370,000 coming off of our bills in the next 2 years, we'll build that back up. So still have the discussion about the shows on how to do that. This allows us to move forward. We were having issues with the grade school, that's only about 11 years old, right?
It's roof or HVAC issues?
Roof.
Do we have roof problem with the building?
We do some work to repair stuff on it.
Okay, that's under warranty.
Yes. Trevor Wood just said they were doing it when they had.
Gotcha, yeah. I didn't know if there was anything
So-
additional.
Okay. I think we're fine to move ahead, then I'd rather set it up long term, be better now, and have to be better later. So I essentially am agreeing, I'm just making my statement. Because it seemed very unclear earlier in the meeting, so.
Okay. Any other discussion? And I guess like I've always said before, we don't have to be unanimous for it, we just have to be respectful. So anyway, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, next agenda item is the Wingert property.
Do we want to table the HVAC portion, put some numbers together then, and get that to you guys for the January meeting, and then we can have a little more educated discussion on
I
that?
think that's,
See, you got that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think
that's all included in the motion.
yeah.
Yes.
And we've got, I specifically asked Jay if we could do that.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that that's something that we should work towards, if it's feasible, to do that all in one project. And I guess another question I would have is, when you're talking to Johnson Controls, would they be willing to renegotiate their contract if we do this?
Yep.
You know, because they would be probably the major bidder on the project, you know, so would they be willing to either reduce the payment on the contract or renegotiate for a new 5-year term?
Absolutely.
With this, because it's a big project.
Which I think they.
I would think they would, you
And I
know.
think it's gonna save them money, because like that unit one, the refrigerant and whatnot is so old.
Yeah.
It's costing them quite a bit of money to maintain it.
You know, well, it costs us quite a bit of money.
So,
Because we pay the bills,
right.
so. Okay. So moving on to the Wingert.
Okay, so, no problem on the eligibility, that got put on there, and no issues at all within a couple of days. Kim and I are ready to move forward with the auction and advertising and that piece. What we need to know, and get some direction from the board is what type of auction do you want to have? We can have a silent bid opening, pick a date, time, get the bids in, or we can have a live auction. What we need is direction from the board on how you want us to proceed, and then we will. Two of us have talked to that, we'll do either one. We're not passionate one way or another, so you guys give us direction and we'll do it.
And I guess my opinion about this is a live auction is gonna cost more. I believe you have the potential to realize the real value of the property, good, bad, or otherwise, where a sealed bid, you can either get an overinflated value or you can get an underinflated value, depending upon, I guess, the conditions. a lot of times when they do a sealed bid, basically, you'll take your top 2 or 3 bids, bring them in a room, and then have an auction between those 3 at the end, but then you don't necessarily need an auctioneer, for that. But at least with a live auction, you may possibly get more acreage seekers in the Sioux Falls metro area, get some more interest on it. But like I said, the auction, I mean, a lot of times auctioneers are 3%, you know, is their charge, to auction it, where sealed bid basically we do on our own, so then there'd be no charge. So, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, it could literally be something that is $10,000, or it could be $110,000. I mean, depending upon what kind of interest it is.
So you recommend you do not?
That's what I would do. I mean, I just, generally, I think you should talk to either like a Landmark or Chuck Sutton and get them to be at that 3% fee. We'll do all the advertising for it, you know, and then. So.
Also, like you said, it's open,
Right.
just it's transparent, it's not,
You know,
I like that part.
I don't know anything about auctions, but that was my thing, to do this auction, because
Hey, do you wanna go to wedding? No. That was my auctioneer rules.
nope. But the 3% would be nice. I might learn how to do it for that.
Yeah.
Might be a conflict of interest. So anyway, I will make that motion.
I will second that motion.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
All right, we will do that.
Next item, we're into new business. And we've got the second reading of policy GCQAA.
Okay. Organized here. Okay. So just as a refresher. What the right ones.
we've been going through a lot of policies.
Yeah, I got them in order here, I just gotta figure out which pile I got here.
This one didn't seem to be in the packet.
This is the second reading, so it was in your packet last time.
Yeah.
That's my district consulting services.
Okay, so upside down. JCQAA out of district professional staff consulting activities. Our recommendation on that one was no changes, just update. Update that we reviewed it, we put it in, and there was really no changes to that one at all, so.
We need motions on all these individually.
Yeah, let's do that way. Not the next line. I kind of grouped them into
Okay,
to ones that we could do, yeah,
okay.
item by item.
So I'll entertain a motion
GCQ.
Good second.
to, okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, now we have the second reading of the policy JGB, GCNA, IA, GBD, IGBC, GCBC, IGBD.
So for a variety of reasons, these are all recommended to eliminate because they're either involved in policy in other areas, or they're in handbooks, or they're in the negotiated agreement for a variety of reasons. So those, our recommendation is to eliminate those, and we can do that in one motion, all of them.
Okay,
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that one.
okay, the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. The next agenda item is the second reading for the cell phone policy. We don't have fancy letters for that one.
Well, no, because this is technically gonna go into the handbook, so no fancy letters. Again, no changes, well, no, we did not make any changes from the first reading, so I don't know if you guys wanted to talk briefly again about it, or we just want to get into discussion and go from there.
I brought a couple of things, because last time we kind of talked about some of the concerns that were had. And I started to do a little bit more research, and I just want to share some of this stuff with you guys, because I think it just really points to a reason why it's important to really take this into consideration moving forward, in my opinion. But in my research, it says that there's like 2/3 of students report that they get distracted by using digital devices. 54% said they get distracted by other students using the devices. There's a correlation with lower academic performance. For the report analysis that was pulled from this particular study that was done, there is a big group of either 15-year-old kids. So there's also some other reports out there that there's an average, teens see an average, of 273 notifications a day. Nearly a quarter of that is during school hours. 1 in 5 students receive more than 500 notifications in a day. So if you think about the interruptions constantly we're allowing in the homes during class, I just feel like, to Dr. DeBoer's point, it's like somebody's poking you inside constantly throughout the day. And maybe for some students, they can control that better than others, but I think there's probably a large chunk that it is probably disrupting their ability to learn during the class periods. And then there's also studies out there that just kind of support how it does, there's a correlation between mental health and cell phone use in school, negative impacts on mental health. High levels of smartphone use among adolescents are linked to increased anxiety, depression, feelings of loneliness, especially when it's tied to social media. And studies show that the majority of the time that the kids are on their cell phones during school, they're on social media. It's not for educational purposes. So when you really start to dig in a little bit, it's quite alarming, some of the facts and the data that you start to find. And so I just feel like we said last time, this is not meant to punish students. We're not trying to take away your right to keep your cell phone, and the ask would be, you get to still keep it in your backpack, just shut it off, you keep it in your backpack, and you can have it during lunch. So we just felt like that would be a fair way to meet kids in the middle, so we're not completely eradicating it from them throughout their entire day. But when our job as parents and educators in the school district is to teach our kids, we want them to be learning during class, and we don't want them to be constantly disrupted in their learning. And so a lot of places, when you start looking into this too, who have moved forward with policies such as this one, have found very positive impacts from it. And students are actually, they love it once they get used to it. It might be a little bit of an adjustment in the beginning phases, I'm sure it will, for everybody. But when we're looking long term, we think it's the right thing to do. So that's my opinion, and so we should do that.
I think that's fair. I think it's good to point out too, we're not alone in this. Other schools in the city are doing it, other states are doing it. Australia recently issued a nationwide ban on social media for all children between 16, and they have a integrated actual vetting process for kids 16 to 18. So it's not just us, Australia's got our back, so it's us and the others.
I've heard of some talks of them, starting to have conversations at the federal level here.
Well, TikTok's about to.
I mean, so it could come down to that anyway, but I just feel, as an adult, it's our responsibility to make sure we're doing the best thing for our kids, and overall, this is the best thing for our kids.
Did you, in your research, mention all those things, and you mentioned kids who have been through this process or schools?
Mm-hmm.
Did you talk to them, or was that in the document?
That was in our research documents. I didn't talk to the school specifically, but I know we do that.
Yeah. I reached out to the superintendent in Gettysburg just because we had talked about that at the last meeting, so I thought I'd reach out to her. And now they do have the yonder pouches, so they would put a little different, they lock them up in the bags, but very similar conversations. And she said for the first couple of weeks they had some students that were upset, but in the long run they realized that they're getting more done. The learning is not being interrupted. There's less distractions. I could go on and on and on about the research when it comes to cell phones and teenagers. So I'll bore everybody with those details, I'll save you from some of those boring details. But in the end, our job as educators is to educate our students. And cell phones are a distraction in the classroom, without a doubt.
So in between last meeting and this meeting, I was vocal that I didn't necessarily, I'm not against the policy, just had a lot of questions about it. So in between the last meeting and this one, I talked to faculty, I talked to a lot of people in the community. When I've had them in a situation where I can talk to them, I asked what feedback was. And overwhelmingly, and I would say even for myself, everybody thought there needs to be policy in place. Whether it was educators, whether it was people in the community, for the most part, everybody was on the same page, which I was surprised by, but that was cool feedback. The feedback that I got in addition to that was, this seems very quick. It seems like we're not considering all of the options for how this could impact, I'm just going to say Dell Rapids School District. There's different ways that the teachers currently use cell phones. Sometimes it's for easier access to applications that actually make teaching easier. Sometimes it's because it helps a teachers having difficulty just dealing with distractions that are coming from the class. They put on music and they're able to become more focused. So when I hear all that feedback, this policy as it's written, I don't like because it's very black and white. And I think in our district, and what a lot of districts are doing is black and white. I don't want to just go with the flow because of that. So I guess in my mind, I still want to work on policy, but what we have here is not where I want to end my piece of it, if that's where I'm going. I read in the paper, Sioux Falls School District did a situation where they took 30 people. There was teachers, parents, administrators, and even students, and they said, okay, let's sit down, let's talk about this. What is the compromise? What makes most sense? And what feedback did that group provide on it? I couldn't find that. But what I liked about it was engaging everybody's perspective. And even Mr. Crump, I don't know how this would affect, but one of the things I heard was there's a lot of block sites when we're doing research papers. We have block sites. Well, kids use it to access use their cell phones to access it, right? Once again, it's making education easier. What would need to be in place if you took cell phones away in order to manage that from your perspective? So there's things like that. There is some educational piece to it, and my perspective on that is, Dawson's here, I'm going to pick on him. He's going out to college next year. What have we done for our students to prepare them for a real world where they're going to have to then just figure it out? They didn't have it, now they have to figure it out. Why couldn't we help them figure that out? Also find a way to make it educational, and then build and make it a stronger, instead of just saying, no, not doing it here. How can we manage that little gap in between and actually be a part of the process? And across the board, I think everybody just, in my mind, we need more input, we need more time. So I don't know if there was a goal to get this by like semester so we can impart it this spring and see how it went. I would rather take the time to get a small group of people together, not 30, we're not the Sioux Falls School District. But if we could take 10 to 15 people, students, faculty, administrators, maybe board members, and say, what does this look like? And come to more of a, I don't want to say thoughtful because you guys took the time to do some research, but what we haven't done, I haven't talked to the students up and getting through. I don't think anybody here has. I would rather engage our students in the whole process and be, again, thoughtful is not the word, but it's just more just don't think we're considering all of the things we're gonna have to look at it because it's in place.
Well,
So-
you said that, in regard to some of the apps or whatever that would be on the block, Spotify was one of them, so students would still be able to plug in some music,
Yep.
which would rectify that
Mhm.
problem. So, agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I think we need something firm, because I think if we have too many exceptions, there's gonna be kids constantly trying to find a workaround.
So, and that was kind of part of our thing, is we don't want to add another thing that teachers have to police. And if there's a bunch of different exceptions, then it does become something that teachers have to police. And there's not then consistency for the kids, where there's one policy in one teacher's room and one policy in another teacher's room. And we did take all that into consideration. We did talk about the music and the different educational pieces that phones are used for. I think if we start here and we look at what things are coming up and what ways can we work around it, but this at least gives us a starting place, and it's clear and it's consistent. Right now, we have a lot of things because they've had free reign of phones. We have kids in middle school that go out to their lockers to get on their phones and stuff. So this just really kind of gives us a clean slate to decide what is it really important to use it for, and what other workarounds can we use so that it's not, we have a straight A student that gets their homework done or their classwork done within the first 10 minutes of class, and then they're sitting on the phone for the rest of the 45 minutes on social media. That's not what they're in school for. So I absolutely understand what you're saying. I mean, it's really difficult to have all the exceptions, but also have it clear across the board and not add another thing onto our teachers' responsibilities as far as managing.
So I'll say something, I'll bring up something you mentioned in your point. Your point was a starting point for a policy. It could also be a starting point for conversation, and then engaging the teachers more than maybe what they have been. Engaging the students, engaging administrators, parents, because we're all parents at this board meeting, right? So why not use this as a starting place for discussion, and then have that discussion, and then wait a few months and say, okay, we come back, let's review this, and we go from there. Because what you're also seeing, I've talked to some of the teachers who have done 1, 2, 3, or 4 different ways, and they've now found a standard that they feel works for their group, and they work with that. I found another teacher who said, I'm not, my personality is not this rigid person. But what I did tell the students was this, and I was very upfront and blatant about that at the beginning of the year, and it's been working. I have other teachers who would very clearly say, I use this tool every day to ease how I teach. In addition, you're taking, one of the things that I liked about what you had in the handbook already was that it was under, the word autonomy for the teachers was already in place. We've completely taken that away. That's not written. So, right, but if we take that away and then we work through the process of doing this through the board, every time I want to make an adjustment, you said this fall, you had to adjust your expectations of what we could do on the board because of the time frame in which we could meet, have public meetings, and then make decisions. That's not nimble either. Take the time to talk up front and then plan out something that can be similar with an input from all parties involved. That's what I'm saying, that's my perspective. So, that being on the floor, we can continue the discussion if that's the point I wanted to make sure I made.
To that point that we're talking about, the autonomy, so when this first came up, prior to the initial review of policy, we talked to 2 different instructors. The thing that came up in those conversations that seemed to be the biggest problem from the perspective was because there's not a single policy in place when they have to enforce whatever their policy is. They run into blowback with students because well, teacher X allows me to do it, or whatever. There was an implication, no one came right out and said this, but I inferred from these discussions that 2 of the 3 instructors would have preferred that there was a set policy in place so that they didn't have to type it up on a regular basis. Again, that's just my inference from the conversation.
You've talked to teachers, correct? Some, and you're just going to give me an overview of what feedback you're giving?
In my advisory, the advisory team that I meet with, everybody agreed there needs to be something in place that's consistent. I did talk to one teacher that explained frustration because she thought she had a plan that worked really well, but she also understood where we were coming from.
Maybe this is obvious, I'll just restate it. I'm not against the policy. I just want to make something that's better. Input from more groups than what this one currently has.
Well, and I guess my point of view is none of this just happened this month. I mean, this has been something that has been in the policy committee, I don't know, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, that the process started. It became public information a month ago. I mean, basically, that's when, our first reading of the policy, and that's why the board is set up this way. And I guess in my mind, as a board member, I don't see any teachers here at the board meeting to argue against this policy. I mean, so I guess, in my mind, that means that most of them, and I don't know if you have been hearing anything from teachers that are against it. I guess if we wait a month, we're waiting 6 months, we're waiting till next fall, And then if we wait 6 months, then, there's things that it seems like it happens all of a sudden, but it hasn't. I know I talked to Donovan, this summer when we heard about schools that were banning some of the Faraday cases, that type of stuff. And it's just like, well, that's interesting, maybe it's something we need to look at, maybe not going that extreme, but at least doing something, because it is a distraction. And I agree with you about teaching kids how to deal with their phone when they get out of the house, but that's the same thing with, washing their clothes and doing their dishes, making their own food. That's something that kids need to learn when they get out of the house. And yeah, it is going to be an adjustment for some. But I guess in my mind, setting up a realistic policy that when you're at school, you're off your phone. Hopefully that is what translates into the future, that basically they get used to, that's your study habit, you might say, so I guess, yeah, I'm in favor of the policy, and I think it's something that we need to at least start with. So
So I guess I would make a motion to approve the policy as is, and I'm absolutely okay with forming a committee to discuss it, like after it's been in place for a couple of months or a month, and see what adjustments may need to be looked at that time. I feel like that would be a good compromise. It gets us started, we can see how it goes, we can see what things may need to be adjusted or looked at.
okay.
Before we approve that, what's a reasonable timeline for implementation? I like that idea, but I don't want to jump the gun, like.
I would prefer the semester
Okay.
to get a
I've
good
seen some
read.
add-ons as well. So
For sure,
I would just maybe
3
move
months.
that recommendation to the end of the second semester.
Yeah, I think that was
That the
intent.
first,
Well, no, they want an additional semester to implement it before we evaluate and reevaluate versus a month. That's the only clarification.
Before we change it.
Well, before we even review it,
Oh,
just to give them time
Sure.
to put it in place and see
Right,
how it goes.
right.
So-
Absolutely, sure.
Implement that semester and then reevaluate at the end of the year.
Whatever, we don't need to necessarily, I don't think we need to put anything on there.
I'm fine with it, it's just, that's how she made the motion.
Yeah.
That's not it.
Okay.
And if we just want to approve it, that's fine, and then we can bring up
Well, that's up to our administration, our policy committee as to, I mean,
implementation.
maybe it's a disaster after a week and we need to look at it.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can start through for a semester. So,
We might be tarred and feathered by then.
I think a semester would give us at least a good look at.
right,
A month just isn't enough time
Right.
to evaluate.
Adjust.
I'm hoping to give the kids a month to just get used to it, so. And most of them are fine. With that being said, I do want to point out that I had a great conversation with these two. I suppose the better part of the half hour, 45 minutes. Super professional, super respectful, great input. And I appreciate the way you guys handled that in the conversation we had. I think we all three felt good about the conversation. Yes, maybe not. Maybe not. Honestly.
okay, is there any further discussion on the matter? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes. First reading, can we roll these all together, or you want to do them separately?
Yeah, we need to kind of go through
Okay.
DEF. The first one, GCL, you'll see our current policy, reviewed May 8, 1998 in your packets, pages 26 and 27. ASBSD's recommendation with, we actually changed, I believe, number 4 and number 7 to kind of develop a little more realistic of what we're doing. So our recommendation would be to change to the current, just one page, is page 28 in your packet. Any feedback by YouTube?
So our original policy was just kind of convoluted and very long. And we like that ASBSD option. A couple of points there made it sound like the board was doing some of the things, whereas it's actually the superintendent and that would be doing it. So we wanted to just change the verbiage slightly to make it clear that, like, we encourage it, but we won't actually be the ones facilitating it.
A couple of things too, like Dell's 21 committee, I don't know if that is teacher effectiveness committee. We don't really have, like, a lot of that stuff in older one, we just don't even have.
So it's just making it a lot clearer to what we have currently and what we'd like to see going forward.
That's why we need to go through policies every now and then.
Things change.
As we do.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on that, I guess.
Need a motion?
No, this first.
No, this first
Oh,
reading,
yeah, sorry.
this first reading, yep.
So then, Mr. DeVore, you want to take away the GD?
Yep, and then GD, BD, EBCA, GC, JAIK, same concept. We have, they're all over the place.
Right?
Let's see. GD, BD is,
And that's in our handbook.
yep,
Okay, so you're recommending getting rid of it.
Yeah.
those are all, they're either in our handbook, they're in a different policy.
The EDCA is our disaster and fire evacuation.
And that's in our crisis plan.
And that just, we update the review date, we stay the same.
Yep. IKA is grading scale, and that's in our handbook. So just cleaning, we're gonna recommend to get rid of those.
Okay. And then first policy on the DG.
Yeah, DJ, I did clean up the edit, I did make some edits to what you suggested. Do you wanna just cover this, Kim,
Yeah.
just to get a little?
So we recently went through a desk review for ESSER. ESSER is our COVID money that we've received. And this is the policy that they have been telling all business managers the school district needs to adopt, because it encompasses everything you need to be in compliance with federal procurement. Procurement of goods that you purchase with federal money. We had most of it in separate little policies, but not all of the wording that they need for the federal government to be satisfied. So they recommend that we all adopt it. So that's what it is. Not really any choice in it. We passed our desk review because I said we were going to do this.
There you go.
I just have one question.
Mhm.
Sometimes with federal policies, once you adopt them, this is from a business perspective, they then affect everything else whether you want to or not. So I just want to clarify, does this only affect when we spend a specific federal dollar for things, or
No,
if we adopt it, it affects everything for you?
we already actually do this, all of this,
Okay.
in our business practices. Anytime you procure anything, anytime you're purchasing anything, you get 3 bids. You make sure that they all compare. I mean, look at your roofing project, or you're making sure that you're getting the required number of bids. You're making sure you're buying everything. There's lots of one-off things in there that we're already doing. They're just encompassing it into one policy. So it is already being practiced. We're not trapping ourselves or anything, but it means. So, good question.
You took a magnifying glass for it, but I
Yeah.
just to make sure.
Well, I had to make sure we're all in there.
Small print.
You can see the paint on it.
Right.
It's a long one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay,
Sid?
that gets through that, and, yeah. The next agenda item is presenter reports.
Okay, so I'm just gonna give, for lack of a little bit of time, the biggest report I want to talk a little bit about is the governor's budget address. So most of you talked with most of you about this. I would say that obviously it's very early, the session starts the 14th of January, so a lot of handshakes will be done and a lot of, in their caucuses will be talked about, but right now, the projection is 1.25% to education. We all know that that's not a whole lot of dollars. In our world, with our largest class graduating and say we're an average of 80, 85 kids, that's really a wash. Like the $95,000 is basically a wash. Probably not even when you're talking increases to like insurance, for example. So that'll make for an interesting, sorry to do this to you, Jared, but that'll make for a first interesting negotiations for us. But that's kind of where we're at that way. And the other couple things that came up as far as educationally, 50-50. Basically, they said it's within their budget cuts, it's a 50-50 share between dual credit. We don't really know what that means. We're assuming that means, talking to a couple of our local legislators, that essentially the cost for students are going to go up. So instead of $48 a credit, which maybe the state was picking up 80%, the student was picking up 20. Now it's going to be more of a 50-50 split. 50-50 adjustment is what they had in the budget. Again, maybe this goes, maybe it doesn't. And then the biggest one that people are talking about is the $4 million educational savings accounts. Educational savings accounts, as we know, is code word for vouchers. The governor has budgeted $4 million for educational savings accounts. Essentially, 1,000 students can apply for up to $3,000. $3 million is what they're budgeting for to give to students. $1 million is for infrastructure to get it up and going. She was pretty clear in her address that this is just the beginning. We're gonna keep moving forward. Obviously, we usually try to stay out of the political realm when it comes to different politics and just give information. This directly affects public education. This is public dollars being diverted to private education. We absolutely should stand against this. We should educate ourselves about it next month, all because legislative session will actually be starting. I'll introduce an ASBSD. I'm sure you guys, if you got those emails, they have a resolution out already. I will be recommending to adopt that and kind of push any direction we can. Anything that diverts public money to private education takes away from our ability to educate our students. It is not that I'm against private education. We have a great private school in Dell Rapids. Those are great students and it's a great school, and they've decided that they want to spend their money in a private education, and they've made that decision. This is about looking out for our kids in our school. So I will be adamantly speaking up against that as the president of SASD. I'm sure I'll be asked to testify at the state level, so that will be happening, unless you guys are adamantly against that, but I don't think you would be. But that's kind of that piece of that.
Part of the school voucher system is then that private schools shouldn't be able to turn away students.
Right.
So, I mean, because that ultimately, that's what really increases the cost of public education, is that we can't turn away students. Private education.
And we all know that.
Right, so I mean, what they should put a stipulation in there, we're gonna put $4 million, but you can't turn away one student.
And I would put a caveat to that is, I forgot to say this. This first round is for low-income students only. Now, how they determine that mechanism, I have no idea. Nobody really knows. The kicker with this is we were anticipating a bill of some sort to be able to fight. We were anticipating, even if they passed the bill, being able to have a referendum to refer it to a vote. But what happened is it was in the governor's budget. So the only way to defeat this, or for it to go away, is the joint appropriators. So once it goes, if it's in the budget, there is no bill, there is nothing to refer. The only way to get to is the joint appropriators, and you start talking to those legislators saying, hey, we don't think this is appropriate. They did that very same thing. There was a ESA kind of put for foster students, $3 million a year ago. And the appropriators, it was diverted through DSS. And the appropriators said, no, we're not putting that money into DSS's budget. So that would be the way that it gets taken out. And I do think there's a chance of that happening. But there's a lot of things that have to happen between now and then.
So when you said the first one was for low income, like they're the ones that would be able to apply for vouchers.
However that process is, I don't know what their definition of low income is. I don't know the mechanism of application. Does it involve homeschool students? Because that's part of the vouchers. Is it just current private school? Is it new people? There's just a lot of unanswered questions. Yeah.
And when is it, this would start? If everything goes through, when would it?
It would start next school year if it moves forward, but there's, they'll have to, it'll be the end of session, middle of March before appropriators approve the budget. So that's my biggest takeaway for a report. That's it. On my own.
Okay. And do we have any committee reports or comments?
Okay, committee reports, I think we've given them.
I feel like you heard that from me.
As far as, you guys.
Okay, with that, our next regular meeting will be January 13th at 7 p.m. Same time, same place. Next item, we need a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Vote nay. Motion passes. We are now in executive session. And there shouldn't be any.
All right, thanks, guys. See you, Gav.
See you.
Okay.